Please welcome Nutanix Senior Vice President, Product and Solutions Marketing, Lee Caswell.
Good morning and welcome to Day 2 .next. You know, with nearly 40 announcements, we had over 100 of sponsors and nearly 5,000 of you here. By the way, 20% of the end users who are here are not yet customers. It's a stunning, really, tribute to the fact that this is the place to learn. And yesterday, it was a fun-filled, fact-filled, innovation-filled day. Today, we're going to dive into the tech. So we're going to go deeper into the technology so you can see how you can bring these new capabilities to life in real time. It's a really great opportunity to start thinking about what we talked about yesterday, run better. Modernizing now, that'll be about our container story, our NKP offerings, and NKP Metal for the first time, and then how we innovate faster, leading with our Agentic AI capabilities. We're going to start the day talking about how to run better. And with that, what I'm pleased to do is now talk about some of the areas in which we're moving to help customers in new ways. Last year, we helped customers think about how do they de-risk Broadcom. This was the top issue that folks were worried about. Today, we have that in a continued fashion, but added onto that, supply chain constraints. For customers who are wrestling with how to get access to servers, CPUs, fast SRAMs, any SSDs, right? We're going to show you ways in which we can get additional storage leverage, server leverage, migration. How do we help with that? We showed the Move tool last year, for example, and now we're going to show that extended into storage systems, and then validated solutions for some of our top partners. It's going to be fact and fun-filled for the day. Let me recap a little bit about the storage element. You know, I joined Nutanix 4 years ago, and I never thought I'd be showing storage integrations like this. It's really powerful to see how our engineering teams have taken an architecture that's storage-friendly and brought in partners, starting with Dell PowerFlex, adding Everpure with the flash array, and then Dell PowerStore now in EA. And then, I think the big news here, let's give it up for NetApp joining the Nutanix family. I'm thrilled with this, and you know, Lenovo also with Think System. What you see here, what we're working on, just to make sure you understand the full complexity of this, is that we're working to make sure that these storage systems are integrated in a way that preserves the NPS experience that you've treasured with our HCI solution. That's a really important responsibility for us. Now, as we think about storage, meaning you can go and leverage your existing storage investments and still de-risk Broadcom, you now have the opportunity also to look at new server elements. And so as we think about how do you supply chain manage the fact that you have a lot of servers, they may not be attached either to HCI systems from Nutanix or now added into external storage attached systems. And so what we're doing here is now expanding the hardware compatibility list for rack servers, blade servers. And those blade servers can now be added into HCI systems. This is always one of the knocks on HCI, right? You couldn't scale storage independently. Well, guess what? You can. You can take and now add compute nodes as you could before into HCI, but you can also bring them into these external storage systems. That's a really powerful way for you to think about how to use existing servers that you have, take advantage of the relaxed compatibility list, and also take advantage of our expanded relationship with AMD. So we're taking now AMD systems, bringing those in certified so that you can go and have access to a wider range of servers as well as from a storage systems. Now, as I talk about storage, one of the elements that people think about, right, data people at least, and I'm a data person, I think, is how do you migrate all of the data without having swing gear and moving and long time horizons? And so these migrating, especially large data sets, could take days or even weeks to go and migrate large data sets. So we're going to start talking about today about zero copy migration. And for that, I'd like to turn it over to my partner in crime here. There he is. Bhavik Desai.
Haley, how's it going?
Good. Thank you.
Good to be here.
All right. So we're talking about migrations. Give us a little preview of what we're going to take a look at.
Yeah. So what we're going to take a look at is I have a virtual machine which is running on ESXi right now, right? So that virtual machine has 4 virtual disks sitting on an Everpure array, backed by from a vVol perspective, the total capacity of which is more than 100 terabytes.
Wait, 100 terabytes, right?
100 terabytes.
Is this like thin provision, like, ones is just zeros? What are you talking about?
No. Let's actually take a look at the VM itself. So this is looking inside the VM, as you can see, running on a VMware virtual platform. 120 terabytes provision, of which, as I mentioned, more than 100 terabytes, which is sitting on the data store, 85 terabyte of which is unique data, as you can see from this Everpure screen.
Nice. And so migrating this is going to take some time, I would think, right? Yeah, what do you think?
You would think so, right? But let's take a look. So now that we've looked at what the source looks like, let's take a look at what the target is going to look like, right? Where we want to move the data. So for that, I'm going to log into my Prism Central screen.
Okay.
What we have over here is our next demo Nutanix compute cluster that is connected to the same Everpure flash array that we looked at before.
Nice. So you've got an ESXi attached, and now we're thinking about how to move that to AHV.
Yeah, we take the compute clusters that customers have, leverage them, and connect it to the same Everpure array. And now to move that data, we're going to use a Nutanix move tool. So I've already populated a Nutanix move tool with a source and destination. I'm going to now go ahead and create a migration plan. Now, for folks who have used Move before, this will look different, right? Previously, it was just one option for migration type, where we do the data copy migration. Now, we can do zero copy migration.
Zero copy migration. Take note of this, right? This is a migration accelerator.
Absolutely. What we do in this is basically we leverage storage level cloning via the APIs and move the data in place from ESXi to AHV.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to select zero copy migration. I'm going to select our Everpure flash array that we looked at before, where our data is sitting. I will populate my source and destination. I'll select my virtual machine that we want to migrate that we looked at before. And then the following screens are basically just your standard move installations that we do. So we can do things like retain MAC addresses, IP addresses. I'm going to keep the default for that. And now you can go ahead and either save the migration plan, but in our case, I'm going to save and start the migration plan. So as you can see now, the migration plan is in progress. What we do over here now is we'll first prepare the source VM. So we'll take care of installing device drivers, installing guest tools.
All automated here, yeah.
All automated by Nutanix Move. We'll prepare the target cluster where we mount the container from an AHV perspective. And finally, we configure the target VM, where we create the VM and set the power state of the VM to on. As you can see, there was no data seeding. There was no copying of data that's happening.
Right. And very interesting, right? And this is going to take a while, so I'll talk for a little bit. So the vVols, if you remember, right, the promise of vVols was to go give you a VM-centric management model, right? So you could look at all the aspects of a virtual machine, including CPU utilization, RAM, other things, right? And you basically now have a single view for diagnosing and things like that. And so how many hours are we looking at to get this done, do you think?
Well, we're done.
Wait, what?
We're done. The data is migrated over.
Come on, there we go. Let's give it up for Bob.
Migrated over. Yeah. So with zero copy migration, no matter how much data you have, it will always remain the same time to migrate data in place from ESXi to AHV. So if I look at the virtual machine now from Prism Central, the VM has been migrated over onto Nutanix AHV. If you look at the virtual disk, they are still sitting on that same Everpure array that we looked at.
Same array, just repointing.
Just repointing it to Nutanix AHV. The VM is running on Nutanix AHV now. And as you can see, the virtual machine is running Nutanix AHV with the same storage that we had sitting on the same array.
Well, this could be the best named tool ever, the Move tool, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Helping people move now with zero-point copies. So
instantaneous in place.
I love it. All right. Bhavik, please, thank you very much. Yeah, that's great. Oh, wait. And to add to that, there's one additional piece. So this is probably a pretty important data set. And so how we think about basically replicating a DR for this, we've had the ability to go and replicate from an array to an array before, right? Or array to an HCI cluster. What else is new?
Yeah, so now with 751, you can do array to array and array to HCI, back and forth, sync, async, and metro replication.
Nice.
But especially now with a hardware-constrained environment, right? Our customers cannot get hardware. You can do on-demand DR to NC2. So once your workloads are on the Nutanix Cloud Platform,
Cool.
you can leverage the complete power of the Nutanix Cloud Platform and set up your on-demand DR to NC2.
I love it. So you've got our rentable DR capability in the public cloud from our cloud provider partners, now available to NC2 from storage. So it's a terrific new set of opportunities.
Absolutely.
Bhavik, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right. Yeah, we have so many capabilities. I almost forgot that last one, so apologies for that. And well, one of the things that's been most interesting, right, is watching partners lean into Nutanix, in part because they're looking to go and make sure they have options as well as their customers. The validated solutions is an important signal of how we're helping now bring, especially storage systems, to customers with the same experience. This was a big issue inside of Nutanix to think, how do we make sure that the experience, the integrated experience, that you achieved with HCI would now be experienced in a 3-tier model using external storage with partners. And here I'm really pleased to show how Cisco has leaned in, for example, with FlashStack with Nutanix. This is now certified, supported system using Pure, or Everpure, Nutanix and Cisco, and additionally, support planned for FlexPod. Who would have thunk it, right? Here we have FlexPod now, Cisco, Nutanix, and NetApp. We're also, of course, working closely with Dell Technologies. We're now part of the Dell private cloud, and we're really pleased to show how the Lenovo Think system is helping with this new promise of making sure we have the support, the automation, these validated solutions for partners here. We have partners here? I think we do, yeah, right. But this is super important, right? So now you can lean in and see the joint power for Cisco partners, for Dell partners, for Everpure partners. It's a great opportunity to start thinking about the power of bringing these solutions to market. And with all of that, I'm going to now switch from running better to running safer. And for that, we're going to talk about cyber recovery, and I'm going to bring my good friend and colleague, Thomas Cornely, to the stage, who's going to take us through this section. Thank you.
Eddie, thank you. Good job. All right, good morning, everybody. So cyber recovery. What's hard about cyber recovery? I think pretty much everything is hard. But when you're dealing with cyber attack and you want to go and actually recover, the toughest thing, what you have to focus on, is dealing with complexity. That's the real enemy. Can you go back on the notes, please? OK, thank you. So that's the real enemy. When you're under a cyber attack, you have a lot of stress. Okay? You need to actually figure out how you're going to go and actually get back your system and your business in place as fast as possible. You want to minimize downtime. You want to avoid reinfection and make sure that the data that you recover is actually clean data. And so in industry, the best practice is to leverage a clean room, an environment that's isolated to go and actually test your recovery data before you push it back to production. Last year, if you were here, we showed a great demo, what I thought was a great demo, of what was possible using our platform to its full extent, using data lens, using Flow virtual networking, using Flow network security, to actually go and create those environments and recover effectively while minimizing cost. But it was a complex demo, lots of moving parts. So this year, what we're doing in our product is we're bringing our Nutanix experience with all the built-in automation that we're known for to make this a lot simpler. So in this segment, we're going to show you how we enable on-demand clean rooms. We're going to show you how we can leverage the whole platform of the cloud platform to do multi-layer detection, so you can actually go and get ahead of attacks. We'll also walk you through a guided rapid restore, which is going to leverage all of this automation. So, better than slides, let's go actually go on to demo, and let's welcome Jason to the. Jason, you're fast, my friend.
I'm already here.
This is going to be the key theme of this thing. All right, it's great to see you.
Good to see you, Thomas.
All right, Jason. So, It's a complex demo, as I said. There's a bit of a setup, right? So let me just walk through a few key components before we get you going. This on-demand clean room has a foundation, and this foundation is going to be done in the cloud. We're going to leverage cloud clusters in AWS, and this cluster is currently hibernated, stored in S3, very low cost, to be used when we need it. We're going to leverage our snapshots, but not just the regular snapshots, the actual MST, multi-cloud snapshot technology snapshots that are actually stored in AWS also. So we have data in AWS, hibernated cluster in AWS, and then we have this new thing, which is this cyber recovery plan, which is what we're going to roll out in our product, which exists in Prism Central. So can you give us a bit of a quick view of what that looks like?
Yeah, we've integrated the cyber recovery plan into our data protection here. So you can see with a little bit of preparation, we can select where the cyber recovery will happen, either on-prem or in that NC2 cluster that's hibernated here. We're going to select NC2, and we can pick all of our workloads to go into the cyber recovery plan using the familiar categories, maybe something like gold, silver, and bronze for the startup sequence of these workloads. We define a little bit of infrastructure ahead of time as well, things like the Active Directory that you might need in this clean room, and the forensic tools that might need to access the clean room so that you can do your scanning while you're recovering. Importantly, we give you the choice to automatically quarantine once you start the plan on your source site. So once you detect an attack, you can start the plan, do a quarantine operation, and then in the clean room itself, we automate setting up the VPC and flow network security policies inside the clean room so that you're not worrying about the spread of an infection while you're doing your recovery plan.
So at this point, this is something that you do ahead of time, right? Calmly, you plan for it, just like you do for a disaster recovery plan, but now you're doing this for that cyber recovery scenario.
That's right.
Correct? All right. And so we just said we also have enhancements in our platform to do faster detection.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that everybody knows about Data Lens is it's detecting attacks faster and faster. Now, Data Lens can detect an attack in less than 2 minutes.
All right.
So Data Lens can flag an attack, but it doesn't stop there. It's a multi-layered detection strategy. So we're adding AOS entropy detection.
So that's a brand new feature.
Yeah, brand new feature. So we can see the entropy inside of a virtual machine's disk and say, well, that looks like it could be an encryption attack. And so we can detect that, block the attack, and then once that is detected, we can then start our cyber recovery plan.
Got you. So we're going to track the rate of changes on your storage, and if it goes above a certain threshold, declare an alert. So it looks like we do have an alert right now. So time to exercise this recovery
plan. It looks like we're under attack. Let's see how to get back up. So the first thing that we need to do is kick off our recovery plan on that newly resumed NC2 cluster. And we've automatically, since we kicked off the plan, quarantined the entities on the source site. And we're automating the complex setup that you might have had for creating networks, security rules, and then the stages of recovery using this runbook here so that you can automate the clean room setup. And we're looking, in addition to the entropy on the AOS storage, we're looking at the entropy of the snapshots. So we can auto-select the best snapshot to restore from in the clean room based on when we think might have been a clean point to restore to.
That's pretty awesome. So as part of the recovery plan, not only do we set up the environment and set up this isolated clean room, we also automatically go back in time to pick the snapshots that were before the attack, or we think are before the attack.
Yes, we're intelligently
room, right?
selecting that snapshot because we want to get you back up fast. And how do you do that? Well, remember, these are all sitting inside of an object store.
Yep.
Sometimes it can take a little while to get data out of that object store. So with multi-cloud snapshot technology and instant restore, you're able to hydrate the data that you need to get the VM running, start your scan, and power the VM up right away, rather than waiting for all the data to come from the bucket.
So again, saving time here.
That's right, because time is really the thing we need to fix here. So what if you don't like the snapshot that you found based on your analysis? So we'll show you the entropy rate of your snapshots so you can visually verify the entropy at each snapshot point, and maybe go back and select a different snapshot to rerun your analysis again in the clean room.
That's fantastic, Jason. So let's assume that our forensics teams looked at the snapshots, they like them. From that point on, it's just a simple recovery back to production,
That's
again,
right.
from the same MST snapshots.
The last stage of that recovery plan is just restoring back from those snapshots into production.
All right, this is beautiful, because in the end, all we did is plan and then activate and let Nutanix do its magic.
That's right.
Thank you so much. It's another great demo.
Yeah, thank you,
Appreciate
Thomas.
it. Now, this is, of course, a new feature in our platform. It's a new feature in Prism Central. But like everything at Nutanix, we always look at our ecosystem. And this automation of setting up a clean room is very useful for our partners. So we got a wide range of recovery engine partners that are going to leverage those APIs now to automate how they set up clean rooms on Nutanix as part of their own workflows. We also have our partners on forensic tooling to help you make sure that once you're in the clean room, what you have is good data, clean data, and then proceed with the actual recovery of your production environment. So again, great core features on how you can run better. Next, Lee. Lee's back. Great. Thank you. So Lee, can you walk us through a bit of that next segment?
Yes. Thank you so much, and thank you for the demo. Fantastic. Well, so now we've covered off the run better element, and we're going to move into now modernize now. And it seems to me there's a bit of a race underway right now about who can get platform or who can get containers into an environment fastest, right? And so the race looks like this, right? On the left, we have, I don't know if it's an AI version of Jason, but it looks really good, Jason. So a version of Jason, now he's representing the IT admins. And on the right, we have Jose representing the platform engineers. And this is an interesting dynamic right now. Both can be chartered with spinning up new Kubernetes clusters, orchestrating, maintaining. How do you go and get new applications deployed? And there's different models, and so it can seem at times that the racers are racing against each other, even maybe searching for control, right?
Or duplicating work, right?
Duplicating work. And so one of the things that Nutanix has a terrific history of is how we have helped consolidate the management of storage and servers and cloud to now on-prem with NC2, for example, right? What we're going to talk about today is how we're architecturally ideally suited for this, and then how we're making it possible. And so to bring that up, talk us through the architecture that makes it possible.
So Rajiv covered this a little bit yesterday, right? And so we allow you to go and run VMs and containers anywhere.
Yes.
Meaning on Nutanix infrastructure, in public clouds, and now on bare metal servers, right? So one thing that's key in terms of how we approach this is we want to make sure that you keep managing VMs as VMs. Use Prism Central for that. You keep managing containers as containers. Use NKP for that. But where we add value, and we talk about this one experience, is how we can actually tackle and simplify day 0 and day 2 operations. Access these interfaces from one place. Set up users and authorizations and what they can do, who can do what where in one place. Then drive the same workflows for deploying, building, operating, and governing those environments. We do this also now at the data layer.
Nice.
So you get consistent solutions for data protection. We do it for the networking layer. We'll show you that.
Yes.
And again, running anywhere, on Nutanix, in the cloud, or on bare metal. And then, and this is the last key point, we do it for our platform services. We're going to get you consistent operations of our more advanced solutions, like NDB, whether you're dealing with VMs and containers. So again, the focus here is don't change how you manage things, but change how you do day 0 and day 2 operations and unify that as much as possible.
It's a critical point to think through. We're calling this dual native mode, by the way. Dual native means you can run VMs as VMs with containers on top, or you can run now containers in bare metal. We're going to show how this all works together. And for that, we're going to put the race on, right? I'm going to take the IT admin team.
I'll stay with the cool kids.
Okay, here we go. You ready? Here comes the race. And for that, whoa, there he is again. All right, Jason, we got a request. You're the IT admin here. We're supposed to spin up a new cluster in a new location, and we're going to show some of the new capabilities we have in terms of shared landing zones, for example. Walk us through, how does this work?
Yeah, thank you, Lee. So it's going to be really easy for me to do this globally and at scale with Nutanix Central. So here I'm just going to go navigate to my cluster and create a project. And I'm going to borrow a term from the public cloud, create a landing zone that's going to hold my VMs and containers. And it's going to have all the Nutanix clusters that I need, the networks that I need, such as my VPC that I have here, so that I can spin up these workloads pretty easily into this landing zone. And now, what's new in this, in my VPC, is that I can select the ability to run both VMs and containers inside of a seamless network with this Flow Virtual Networking VPC.
Love it.
So I have all these selectors here to pick my Kubernetes workloads via pods, and just run them inside that same VPC. But it's not really enough just to connect the workloads together. It's great if they have network connectivity, but you have to do that securely.
Yes.
So we've also extended this to Flow Network Security, where we have the ability to have a Kubernetes pod or service defined inside my Flow Network Security policy, selected with those same selectors, so that now I'm able to go ahead and have my container workloads inside that VPC and secured by a Flow Network Security policy.
Nice.
So my infrastructure setup is ready.
This integrated data services, integrated security and networking, right? Really unique, right, across containers and VMs. Show us, how do we spin up a VM?
Yeah, so I've set it up using projects. So my team actually just has a view here where it's really easy for them to go in, fill out a few details, and then launch a VM right away. It spins up in that landing zone in the right VPC with the right security policy. So that VM is now running and ready to go.
Got it. Fantastic. Looks like, to me, the IT admin team has really pulled in the lead here. So good job, my driver, Jason. Thomas, what do you got for us?
Well, I personally don't have much, but Jose is going to show us what he has for us.
Okay.
All right, Jose. ¿Cómo está?
Muy bien. How are you?
All right, great. I mean, he's kind of showing off a bit on the side here. He's got a nice landing zone that he set up, and he's setting up an environment for us to do both VMs and containers. So how do we pick up from here and start now doing our job as a platform engineer, deploying Kubernetes while taking advantage of what Jason has set up for us?
Thanks to the project that Jason created with those resources and that networking, now me as a platform engineer, I can access Nutanix Central, and using the Prism Central marketplace, I can spin up my own NKP cluster for my developers. The first thing that we need to do after giving a name, we are going to choose what is the operating system image that we want for our Kubernetes cluster. In this case, we are going to use Ubuntu Pro. Ubuntu Pro is included for all those customers running NKP Pro and NKP Ultimate. The next thing that you will do is to set those resources, such as virtual CPU, memory, and disk. And this is really important. And it's important because at the end of the day, running Kubernetes on a virtualization platform gives you that flexibility to allocate the right resources depending on your use case. Once we select those resources, next, we want to put that cluster, that NKP cluster, inside of that VPC. We select the VPC that Jason created before. And the last step will be how we enforce that additional security, that network policy that Jason created in Prism Central, down to our Kubernetes cluster, Kubernetes pod, and Kubernetes services. What we are working here is to simplify the way that you enforce policies. It doesn't matter if you move that NKP cluster, those workloads, into another location, at the edge, at the public cloud. You are enforcing from the same single entry point, virtual machines, and Kubernetes clusters and their applications. Once you are ready, you will get an enterprise-ready NKP cluster in under 20 minutes, ready to go.
And at that point, what I have is I have a landing zone, a VPC, where I can run virtual machines, I can run my containers. They're all in the same network. And my security policies that have been configured once by Jason will now apply to both my VM workloads and my containerized workloads. So again, this is all about simplifying your day-to operation of this environment while keeping things secure, both VMs and containers. And this is all from Nutanix Central, correct?
That's right. We are bringing to Nutanix Central NKP. On that way, we are simplifying from a single console the way of managing virtual machines as well as Kubernetes clusters. From there, you are able to see your global scope of all the NKP clusters that you are running globally. But if you want to delegate access to a specific region, you will have the flexibility and that agility to give that management to your users in that region, like we did in this case. But we don't stop here. Now that we deploy the NKP cluster before, we want to ensure that an application that was part of that deployment, the security policy is being applied. Me, as a platform engineer, I can switch back to the infrastructure view and see that security policy. We can see that now a Kubernetes pod has been detected. And specifically, that Kubernetes pod, it's running a containerized database, Postgres, in this case, with pgvector. This is a very common use case when it comes to artificial intelligence, and you need that vectorized database for your LLMs.
I love it. So, I mean, Lee, you were showing off a bit earlier. Like, what do you think now?
Yeah, I think we may have pulled even. So as we start thinking about these audiences together, right? Look, I think we can bring these teams together. And the goal, right, is to make sure that we can launch applications as quickly as possible in a production, both of you really? in a production manner, and basically both make it to the winner's circle. With that, we're going to go back, pop some champagne.
Before you guys leave, let's give it a hand to Jason and Jose.
Yeah, good job, guys.
Good demos, guy.
That was awesome. Thank you, Lee.
That's fun.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you,
Jason. Now, Jose, we have all this nice environment, and again, it's not about just containers on Nutanix AHV, right? We announced this thing, NKP Metal, yesterday, which is a big deal. And so how do we simplify now and unify the way you deploy clusters, your containerized clusters, also on those bare metal? We see this more coming up in the context of AI. A lot of it now coming up in the context of customers who can go and deploy applications to the far edge, where if I have a small environment at the edge where I'm doing a lot of containers, maybe 1 or 2 VMs, I want to go bare metal. And so we make that possible too. What does it look like?
So for those of you like me, deploying Kubernetes has been always really hard. And when it comes to the edge, even bare metal, even harder. So what we are bringing with NKP Metal, and this is what we have been delivering for all of you with Hyperconverged for the last 15 years. And this is Foundation Central. Be able to use the same automation, the same capabilities that we have brought to you on deploying a cluster in just hours instead of days or weeks. Here in Foundation Central, we have a set of bare metal nodes, and we are selecting those nodes that we want to use to create that NKP Metal cluster. Once you have your nodes, the next step, and this is something new that you will see soon, it's NKP OS image. The same operating system image that I was talking before, you could use Ubuntu Pro, or you could bring your own operating system. Once we select that operating system, those nodes will be ready to create an NKP Metal cluster. From there, we go back to the NKP console, and let's go and create a new cluster. We will have a new infrastructure provider when you go through the process. We can see that now we get that bare metal infrastructure provider. And the second step, back to Thomas, what he said around artificial intelligence at the edge, we need to have data there because we need to run that vectorized database, that Postgres that we mentioned before. And we are bringing, and this was announced yesterday by Rajiv, cloud-native AOS on NKP bare metal.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So we deploy cloud-native AOS as part of the whole NKP cluster deployment now.
That's right.
You can unify that experience completely. You get compute and data all taken care of, even though you're doing this on bare metal servers.
Exactly. We could call it even cloud-native hyperconverged infrastructure.
Oh my God. Are you in marketing?
Yeah, definitely I do. So from there, the next step is going to select those nodes that we imaged before. Some of those nodes, they were tagged as a control, so you can use it as a control plane. Other of them as a GPU heavy, in case of that artificial intelligence use case. And the last step before creating your NKP Metal cluster is to choose how many of those nodes you want to use for cloud-native AOS, and then the replication factor on the same way that you do with your hyperconverged infrastructure.
This is fantastic, okay? Because again, we take something very complex and we bring our Nutanix magic to doing containers not only on Nutanix, we've done that for a while, but now containers on bare metal, far edge, bringing consistent data services to those Kubernetes clusters. Awesome. Thank you so much. That was a great demo, José.
Thank you.
Now, as we mentioned earlier, we don't stop here, right? It's all about this automation and this unification of experience. We're doing the same thing for our NDB product. We've done a great job with NDB, and we're seeing massive adoption of NDB right now on VM infrastructure. We've got a lot of demand piling on now to go and bring the same automation of NDB, same control, same data management, and copy data management of NDB to containerized databases. So that is now being built. It's coming soon. It's also leveraging Cloud Native OS as a substrate for data. And this will allow you to now get the NDB experience, whether you're running on AHV, running in the cloud, or running on bare metal Kubernetes. This is really important. But the news on NDB doesn't stop here. As I said, we're getting fantastic traction right now in the field. We're getting a lot of demand for new database engines to support. And there's one big piece of news in terms of what we've added to NDB around the support of MongoDB and ever bigger, more complex MongoDB sharded database environments. So to tell us more about that, please welcome Olivier Zielianiki. Bonjour Olivier.
Bonjour Thomas, comment ça va?
C'est fantastique d'avoir tous ces Français avec nous.
Hey, on est beaucoup maintenant, hein?
Avec les AI. All right, sorry guys. I just love the fact that every time we meet new partners and we go deeper with partners, the most good-looking ones tend to be French.
I appreciate it.
All right, Olivier, it's great to have you with us. Again, we've been close partners for a while. We're taking this to the next level, obviously, both with NDB, but also in terms of how we work with our customers. We have lots of things going on together. Can you tell us more about you yourself, Mongo, where you're at, what you're seeing, what's next for you?
Of course, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me here. It's an honor. We're truly excited about this partnership and this new integration that we're talking about. So MongoDB, we've been around for 15 years now plus, and we really transitioned from being a document model database to a unified data platform, right? And we allow today our customers to run, whether it's transactional workloads, whether it's stream processing, or real-time analytics, any type of use cases, okay? We also have vector search, and then last year we acquired Voyage AI, which provide best-in-class embedded models for a customer. Bottom line is that we allow now our customer to really build the next generations of applications, including AI. Now,
this is great.
AI is dependent on a lot of things, right? Like whether it's models, frameworks, cloud, on-prem infrastructure, security data, and it all has to work together. That's why I think as part of our next phase in our MongoDB's chapter, which we called MongoDB 3.0 on our path to $5 billion in revenue, we really want to accelerate our investment into the broader partner ecosystem with the goal of providing our customers production-ready solution so that our customers don't have to glue several different tools together and that ISV like ours, go in silos, but instead, we come together to provide a better customer experience.
This is fantastic. By the way, I love the strategy that you have, right? Because we've seen this pool now from customers around more MongoDB deployments, larger MongoDB deployments. And again, you can see the fact that they're driving more MongoDB for more advanced use cases, including this emerging set of AI use cases in the enterprise. Now, you mentioned this, enabling MongoDB to be deployed in a consistent, simple fashion anywhere. You've got great solutions in the public cloud. This is where we come in terms of how we can help deliver that simple one experience for MongoDB databases, also now on premises.
100%. This is what is truly exciting about these integrations, and it feels that we're just at the beginning here of our partnerships. This integration is additive to the AI unified platform that we got, and what it provides our customer is the same great experience, whether you're in a hybrid, on-prem, or cloud environment, right? And that NDB plus MongoDB help extend the capabilities of our control panel called Ops Manager to really help orchestrate and help customers who have complex deployments, especially the sharded clusters, whether they want to clone production data into dev and testing environments, or they want to be able to manage backups.
Actually, this is the key thing, right, that the work together has brought. So we complement Ops Manager, we actually drive more automation around Ops Manager, and then we leverage our data platform, right? So one of the things that we are able to go do now is enable really ridiculously small recovery times for very large sharded environments, right? We can actually get a database back in shape, back online in a matter of minutes using NDB and then the underlying AOS and eventually CNAOS capabilities. Again, really solving problems that, on premises would be actually way complex and involve a lot of manual steps, correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Look, this is fantastic. It's been great to have you here. It's a great partnership. We love where this is going, the fact that this is for so many different use cases. And again, merci for making the trip.
Merci beaucoup, Thomas.
Merci, Olivier.
Merci.
Hopefully you're feeling the same thing. Is we've had to spend a lot of time selecting what to talk about at this event because we have so many things going on. So we talked about how we can help you run better. We talked about how we can help you modernize now. The next step, obviously, now that you have this fantastic environment, this rich platform, is to drive more innovation. We'll talk about AI when it comes to innovation. And as we know, when we talk about AI, you talk about AI infrastructure. And the key building block of your AI use cases are those AI factories. They don't have to be large, by the way. Anytime you have some GPU servers, we refer to those as an AI factory. And what started there was this was very specialized hardware for a very small set of target users to do a very specialized task, most cases training a model. But now what we're seeing is this complete change of the demand being put on this AI infrastructure. We have a lot more users coming in, and agents are going to go actually keep on amplifying that demand. So now, what you have is you have specialized hardware with a lot of potential users, a lot of varied, diverse target use cases and applications, and massive, massive demand for people that want to go and use this in a self-service fashion. And this is where we look at this trend, and we're like, look, we've solved this. We've done this before. This company was built to do cloud operating models for the last 16 years. And to do that, we need to go bring the pros. We need to bring people like you, the infra admins, the cloud admins, the platform engineers, to take control of that precious hardware, manage it, govern it, and make it available while managing tenants to your end users in a self-service fashion. And so this is really the crux of that Nutanix Agentic AI solution that we announced a few weeks back at GTC that we're now expanding at .next. The key thing here is empowering the admin teams, the platform teams, to manage those environments and then deliver governed, secure self-service while maximizing utilization of this precious hardware. So we're going to double-click into this because, again, we can talk about slides, but we want to show you what we're building. It all starts with an AI-optimized AHV. You have to have VMs are the foundation of every cloud. We know that. We believe in that fundamentally. That's how you get security and utilization. That's how you operate those environments at massive scale. So you have to have an AI-optimized AHV. Then we can enable the rest of the use cases, and we have demos for this. Now, you want AHV for a few reasons. One is a hypervisor is what gives you that strong tenant and workload isolation. It's the foundation of clouds, as I said. It gives you control of resource, gives you controls of quotas, gives you enforcement of who's using what and doing what. You also can use your hypervisors to optimize utilization. Not all tenants use everything they said they would. I can actually overbook resources. That's where, again, the hypervisor gives you this control, so you can drive high utilization into the environment. And then, as we all know, VMs, in the end, are second nature to all of us because this is how you do day two operations at scale, how you do things consistently, repeatedly, and securely. But the trick here to get AHV on an AI infrastructure is to make AHV deliver bare metal performance. You have to be optimized. And it's actually harder to do on those advanced AI servers because they're complex. There's a lot of hardware in there. You still have your 2 CPU complexes, you have your memory, you have your GPUs, your NICs. One thing that you always have in those multi-CPU servers is this slow interconnect link between the 2 CPUs. And what you want to do whenever you lay out workloads, allocate resources to VMs, is to avoid having IOs go across that interconnect. If you're not optimized for those servers, this is what you would get. If you just plopped any hypervisor randomly, or in some cases right now, Kubernetes randomly on bare metal, on an environment, you're going to get this type of allocation. I'll take resources on a CPU on the left, memory on the right, and you're actually pushing IOs between on that slow link. You're going to get inferior performance. So the right way to go and do things, and there's a lot more we do in AHV, but fundamentally, you have to be what Rajiv called yesterday as being topology aware. If I create a VM, I'm going to go and carve out resources that are on the same CPU complex, so that all of these operations are always on the same side of the server, physically close together to get max performance. That's my fundamental building block. That's how we can actually get you VMs of any size. A VM could be the whole node, a VM could be portions of a node that deliver bare metal performance on those advanced servers. And so now, I can use AHV as my building block to do much more and give you governance of those AI factories. So let's walk through some demos, and please welcome Laura Jordan. All right.
Thomas.
I was wondering
I snuck up on you.
if I would get surprised again, but thank you for giving us time to adjust.
Gave you a heads up.
All right, Laura. So we have these foundation pieces. We know we can do things very fast using our hypervisor, but we talked about the fact that we want to actually enable governance.
Definitely.
And so can you show us, how do we create tenants, manage tenants on this new infrastructure?
Yeah, definitely. So a tenant is a key component of service provider architecture, right? So you want to be able to use this infrastructure and share it among tenants, as you mentioned, and make sure that they have logical isolation and secure in their own secure landing zone, right? To use that term. So what we have here in the Nutanix Central Marketplace, we now have an SP Central application to handle that tenant management. And we can come over, again, here in Nutanix Central to the dropdown, and come over to the SP Central view. So we can see we're currently managing 4 tenants, and let's go ahead and onboard a new one. But before we do that, let's take a look at the infrastructure that we're actually going to be deploying this to. So coming back to that dropdown into the infrastructure view, we can see I'm managing a couple of clusters from this Prism Central, one of which is an HGX cluster. So that's the NVIDIA HGX. With B200 GPUs.
So those are the beefy nodes, right? The one I was showing. So HGX is this NVIDIA class server with 8 GPUs per, correct?
Yes, exactly.
The workhorse of AI factories.
Right, exactly. So they're beefy nodes. So we have 3 of those here. And if we look at the GPUs, we have 24 total, so 8 per node. The math checks out. We have some of those already allocated, but we have several that we can allocate to our new tenant. So let's go ahead and do that. So coming back into the SP Central view, we'll walk through the process to add a new tenant. So we'll first, designate a tenant admin. They're going to get their own custom URL to log in. And then we need to select the domain. So that's going to be the same Prism Central that we just saw. And then as part of that, a project gets created. And that's where that landing zone is. So that's that isolated, strictly enforced, isolated namespace for their dedicated networking, RBAC, and all those things that they need. And what we'll do now is we'll add resources to that project. So we're selecting our cluster, we'll select the storage, and here's where we'll define the quota limits that you talked about, right?
Gotcha.
We want to ensure that they don't go overrun all of our infrastructure. We're going to give them enough quota here so that they can leverage the full power of those remaining 16 B200 GPUs. We'll do a quick review here. Add the resources, add some networking so that they can have external connectivity, and then that tenant is now created. We can see that custom URL, and coming back into our tenant lists, right? We have our new tenant here added.
I love this. And by the way, what's actually important here is it's still Nutanix Central, the same interface, SP Central, this new offering we have for creating tenants for any use cases, and now applied and extended to AI use cases.
Definitely, yeah. So we're going to keep it simple, keep everything under that same management plane.
So now I have this tenant set up with these GPUs. Of course, the whole point of this is to enable tenant self-service.
Yes. So yeah, so using that custom URL that we just saw, the tenant admin that we allocated can log in here. They can create additional users as well, of course, in their organization, connecting to their IDP. And we can see they're in that same infrastructure, but they can't see anything else, right? Just what they've created, which so far is nothing. They can see the floating IPs that we've allocated. But let's get them going with a Kubernetes cluster so that they can start to deploy AI workloads. So as we saw earlier, we can access NKP from that dropdown and just quickly walk through the cluster creation. So we'll give that cluster a name. And then we'll specify, our worker node configuration. And this is where we actually see how we're implementing, the AI-optimized AHV, that topology awareness. We're doing that through something called VM profiles. So we can see here we have a variety of VM profiles. We'll apply this to the VM. So you can think of it as a cloud instance type. It's a pre-configured, T-shirt-sized hardware configuration. So it takes all the guesswork out of, how do you optimally deploy these VMs. So we'll go ahead and add that, create that cluster, cooking show style, here it is. And coming back into my tenant portal, I can see now, right, I have 4 VMs with those B200 GPUs ready to allocate applications.
All right, so now as a tenant, I went and set up my own Kubernetes cluster. I do it the way I want, right?
Yep.
But now, this is all to do AI. I want to be able to go and build applications, build agents, make use of these resources.
Yeah.
And we have a new thing that were announced yesterday also with Rajiv, which is the NKP AI catalog.
Yeah, so let's take a look at that. So in the NKP view here, we have that new applications and AI catalog. So we want to really, get developers started on their AI journey as fast as possible with the least amount of friction. So we have a variety of different categories here, right? Dev tools, things like Jupyter Hub, Flowwise, MLOps. And we're continually adding to this, right? The open source landscape is evolving rapidly. So as we get feedback from customers, we'll be looking to add more. Agentic tooling, vector databases, and NVIDIA solutions as well, like the recently announced NemoClaw. We could add that to our NKP cluster. And again, no CLI, so making it very easy to deploy. We'll do some sizing for you based on where you want to deploy this. Select that Kubernetes cluster we just created. And it'll also resolve dependencies for you. So in this case, right, NemoClaw is an agent, so it needs an inference endpoint on the back end, which Nutanix Enterprise AI provides, along with things like guardrails, rate limiting, and those types of things. So it makes it very easy to deploy these applications.
That's fantastic. Again, Laura, thank you so much for a great demo.
Thank you.
Making it
Thanks,
super
everyone.
simple. The NKP catalog is a huge deal, okay? Because we're basically, for the first time, adding to NKP things that are directly targeted at developers, all right? And again, enabling developers to use all the power of AI and agents to go and build new applications. Now, for the next set of demos, we're going to welcome our CTO, Mano, and Ashwini, my lead PM on AI. Mano, if you remember last year, actually, let's go back to last year and some predictions that he made.
2025 is allowing us to enable agents using these models. And I think what is coming in the future is managing agents themselves.
Yeah.
Because agents need exactly the same sort of security that every personnel in your company is working, because it is going to take action on your behalf. Right. It needs to have AD credentials, role credentials. It needs to be like part of the enterprise workforce. And it is not just going to work with your tools. It's going to work with each other.
Please welcome Nutanix Chief Technology Officer Mano Bhattacharya.
Good morning. Wow, when I was talking about it last year, I thought it'll take 3-5 years to get here. But boy, we reached there in like less than a year. It feels a little bit like Star Trek, the warp speed, time and space collapsing. And it all happened like November of last year. People were trying to build agents, and then Claudebot came out. January, it became open source. OpenClaw happened. And then all hell broke loose. Everybody was creating agents. And agents, interestingly, became the new applications. And what happened was, we really had a compression of time. Think of virtual machine applications being built as monoliths. Took years to build. We went to cloud native, things happened in months. We were iterating much, much faster. And now, with agents and structures like Claudebot or OpenClaw, we're really creating agents in days. So this velocity is actually very, very exciting. But at the same time, it is scary. Because these agents have a lot of problems. First, these agents actually they spawn off these sub-agents and substructures, and they internally, all of these guys actually keep on consuming tokens. And tokens have become the new oil for these agents, the new fuel, bits of information that's driving all of this. And it costs a lot of money to make that happen. And that's one of the reasons enterprises are really fearful of making sure that they can deploy agents at scale. And the other side is that these agents taking actions also have problems. Because when you take actions, you need to curtail what they can do. So with one of the things that, with MCP, that Anthropic came out, we have now ways to guardrail them so that they cannot do whatever they want. You can protect this. So in our AI gateway, what we have done is we have taken care of two things. Cost rationalization, how we can manage your cost budget for tokens, and risk mitigation of the tools that it does. Now, I know there are lots of issues that not all of the things that we are doing. We'll also work with partners to make sure that things like model drifts, how do we protect all of this? But at present, particularly for the AI gateway, let's look at some demos. How we can actually do this cost optimization or cost budgeting and risk mitigation. And for that, let's join Ashwini Vasant on stage. Hi, Ashwini.
Hi,
Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much.
So what do you have in store for us?
I'm going to do some role play.
OK.
So I am actually a NemoClaw-enabled marketing engineer today.
Wow. NemoClaw. That's interesting.
And I basically have a marketing agent crew. It's communicating with me via Slack. And it doesn't have access to the internet. So it can't actually post to the internet or consume content. However, it has access to Nutanix content, which has been pre-created. But it needs to be framed for different persona, different channels, measured, et cetera. And that's what it's been doing with me by posting over Slack Converse. So you can see the LinkedIn posts that it's been doing since morning. It's measuring itself. It posts on different channels, but it also gives me measurement. It keeps track of operational expenses.
So how much did we spend?
That's a good question. Let's ask NemoClaw. So I asked about the spend today.
6 million? Just you? It's still morning, right?
I know. It looks like I'm expensive, and I'm just one employee. So something to keep in mind. But maybe we should dig under the hood and see why it's that much. So this is a VM.
Oh, that's good. It is a VM, so we can protect it. We can put microsegmentations around it. So all the security guarantees of our cloud infrastructure can be added now to agents.
That's absolutely correct. And then we add an additional layer of security with the NemoClaw sandbox that I'm connecting to. And then we're running the OpenClaw agents within this sandbox, right? And we have a bunch of agents running over here. And each of these agents is, for example, posting to a different channel, or it's doing cost monitoring. And each of them is actually consuming a model endpoint. Right? So I'm going to kind of zoom in to show you the model endpoint that it's actually consuming.
How does it look?
Yeah, so this one is actually our Nutanix AI Gateway Unified Endpoint. So we're now going to go to our product and look at it. This is a unified endpoint, and the way we've configured it is using a failover mode. So essentially, the primary is an OpenAI endpoint. So it's actually a provider. It's going to cost us money. And then the fallback is the Nemotron 3.
Okay, that's how you protect it.
Super model, which recently got announced by NVIDIA. So that's our fallback, but it's self-hosted.
Okay.
Right?
And how much did you spend on this?
You always have your eye on the ball.
11 billion? And this is for 24 hours across the company, right?
That's right. It's the entire company.
My manager is not going to be happy. My boss is always worried about tokens.
OK, well, we should see what we can do about that really shortly. But I do want to say a few things. So one thing that we have is the ability to rate limit. So we said that every employee is potentially using this, but they're also using a bunch of agents. Now, we can rate limit each of them at a granular level to make sure that their token usage is limited. But now I have to answer your question, Mano.
Yeah.
So shall we look at the
Yes,
GPT-5
the real cost.
usage?
That's what I'm waiting for.
OK.
0. Wow, how did you manage that?
Well, we failed over. So I think we ran out of credits on OpenAI,
Lucky me.
and we failed over to the Nemotron 3 supermodel, which is hosted by us.
That is wonderful. And we talked a lot about the security side of tools also. This is wonderful where we are protecting against cost. How do you do it against tools and protecting the safety of them?
Absolutely great question. So essentially, we saw interactions between the agent, crew, and Slack. And luckily for us, there is the model context protocol, which has been standardized. There's good adoption in the industry. So for example, the Slack actually has their own MCP servers, which can be consumed and leveraged by agents. The challenge, however, is the control aspect, as you pointed out. And our AI gateway is not just an LLM gateway, it's also an MCP gateway.
Awesome.
So, so we actually have a MCP connector that we can program against this MCP server, and we've enabled just 4 out of the 13 capabilities that Slack offers. So the agent can only access these 4, and it's these 4, right? So it can send messages, create canvases, update, and then read canvas. So that's all that we stick to.
You allowed them, but what did you not allow?
So it can't search for other channels, it can't post, it can't delete any of the channels. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Ashwini.
Thanks, man.
So what you saw was the ability of the gateway to do 2 things. One, to actually budget your tokens across your agents and allow you to fail over to various endpoints, some of it running on-prem. And this allows us to actually make sure that as long as you have infrastructure, we can manage your models wherever you want. And for that, we are working hard to make sure that that infrastructure can run your models with a lot of efficiency. Because GPUs are expensive, right? And running them is actually way more expensive with all the power and all the cooling you need. So we're making sure that we can reduce things like redundant computation using KV caches, or you do predictive speculative decoding where you're actually generating tokens from small n-gram models and then validating against large models. We're also doing quantization. We now support already pre-quantized models, but we'll also be auto-quantizing as we go on. So there are very, very interesting stuff that is happening in the world which will allow you to run very efficiently with your GPUs on all these models. And we're not working alone. We're also working on security with companies like Palo Alto, who will be able to give you secure models and secure endpoints for us. And if you think of the gateway, it is also going to be in the future doing semantic routing, which is a very, very interesting concept, because if you think of your enterprise, you might have models which are specialized in legal, models which are specialized in HR, and through the gateway, using the prompts, we can classify the type of prompt and route it to the right models. So these small army of models can actually help different specialized agents for you at a much lower cost. So these are very, very interesting things that we are doing on the compute side. But the other interesting part of AI is data. And data, if you think of it, is actually very messy in your enterprise. And the problem with models is, if you give it good data, it generates good output. If you give it bad data, it generates bad output. So we need to make sure that we can give it good data across your various enterprise data sources. Now, we have tried to do some of it with RAG, right, for simple search and summarization of homogeneous data sources. But if you think of other problems where you have many, many data sources, you can have data sources which are structured, maybe databases. You can have unstructured, which like your files and objects, or semi-structured, which is pretty much your application data. How do you merge them together? Because without them being merged, Like, for example, how do we bring relationship across these different data sources? You typically come out with very, very messy and inaccurate output. And sometimes you do not even have the data access controls on those output as the same as your data sources. So what we are doing now is to build a product which can merge these different data sources, allow you to bring those relationships forward, and create a pipeline where you can clean, transform, and create them very nicely for these models. So to show this, let us go back and join Ashwini with what we are doing with Data Hub.
Awesome. Can I show you inaccurate output first?
Yeah, why don't we start with something bad
Okay.
and show what the current RAG models will do for us, or RAG pipelines will do for us.
Absolutely. So this is a common situation where you have IT managers, you have lines of business, and both of them usually have similar questions, where it's like, what are the common IT issues? What's the resolution time, right? And both of them actually need different granularity of answers. So that's the setting we're going to deal with. But like I said, I'm going to show, rather than inaccurate, I should say a suboptimal model, where I'll start with simple RAG, and we've basically fed it some documents about raw data, and we're going to ask the question, which is, what is the most common IT issues? By the way, I'm showing you our Talk to My Data simple RAG app. So when I ask this question, what do you think?
It's pretty bad. It's already leaking a lot of information. I'm seeing emails, phone numbers. That's not good.
Yeah, that's true. So there is PII information. There's also no structuring. And this is basically because we're not doing any processing, right? We've just fed it what is there in the data. So now I'll switch over to the Data Hub view, where we're connecting our Data Hub using an MCP server that we spoke about.
Nice. So your Data Hub itself is like a tool that can be accessed by the agent.
That's correct. Perfect. And we're not doing anything else. We're asking the same question.
No, it looks already, your phone, all of the personalized information is redacted. So it's doing all these transformations before feeding it to the model. Awesome.
That is correct. That is correct.
That's amazing.
And you'll also see a lot more structure in this particular output. You see that the issues are grouped together. You have patterns.
So we also talked a little bit about joining sources, right? This is still a single source of data. When we are joining sources, how do we make sure that exactly the same things, along with the data access controls, can be maintained?
Yeah, that's a great point. And that way we can highlight our access controls as well.
Absolutely.
So this one is me talking as a line of business or a platform engineer. I know this was very debated just earlier, so but the line of business is just trying to understand this level of information, right? And so now I'll switch over to a view where you're actually an IT manager. That's your role. And we're asking the same question.
So as an IT manager now?
Yes.
Oh, wow, she's got a lot more structure and a lot more details.
Yes, absolutely.
How did you get that?
And basically, this is the multiple sources that you were talking about. So the IT manager actually has access to the root cause analysis data, because they have to actually do something about solving this, mitigating it, looking at trends, et cetera. So there is an additional data source.
So it is merging then, and it is also managing the access control.
That is correct.
Perfect. Awesome.
Yes.
Now, can you show us, like, what's the real pipeline? How does it even look? What's running under the hood?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So this is the pipeline under the hood. I will call out that you'll see there are multiple.
So you're mapping Google Drives to Nutanix files.
Right.
Awesome.
So you basically have these two sources. They're coming in through the pipeline. A lot of transformations happening. I will also call out that this is basically our Data Hub pipeline builder. So you can build your own customized pipeline to be as powerful as you need for your use case. This is something that we built for the demo specifically.
But you also have a custom transform there. What does a custom transform do?
My God, you have really great eyesight, Mano, to catch that. But we'll zoom in on the custom transformations. It's a great call out. So essentially, the data needs to be transformed, or some transformations need to be applied for you to be able to redact PII or bring structure to it, both of which we saw in the demo, right? This is traditionally done by writing code to make this happen, and which you can still do. But now there is something new and exciting. You can do the same thing with just a prompt.
That's amazing. So anybody without a background on code
Yes.
could actually be creating these pipelines and do all these transformations.
That's exactly right.
Thank you so much, Ashwini.
Thanks, Manu.
So this is, I think, thank you. So this is very, very interesting. We have not delved into the data of the enterprise. Up till now, we were working mostly on storage, bits, bytes, files, objects. This is interesting because we are now trying to understand the semantics of your data. We are allowing you to create custom pipelines. And in those pipelines, some of these transformations could actually be prompts. So anybody who does not have an engineering background, who does not know how to write Python code, can now create pipelines that can effectively give you really good answers for your questions. And I think I'm really excited because this is in our first foray into data. We can actually do a lot of things on the data side of things and not just storage. So to summarize the innovation fast track, if you think of it, we are bringing in all the mechanisms and all the simplicity across the stack, all the way from your CPUs, GPUs, DPUs, making hypervisors available to partition them, optimize them, to create a cloud-native infrastructure, to deploy modern applications, build new AI applications, and serve them very, very easily across multiple tenants in a service provider. But with all this, we're just doing the new thing, which is managing messy data. So with all this, this is what the Nutanix Agentic AI is all about. It is not one thing. It is this multi-layered solution across the stack, solving all of the things that from infrastructure all the way to your data management done by Nutanix. So to summarize the entire talk, we are all working hard to make sure we can run better and efficiently on your existing hardware, not have to buy new hardware from, with all the supply chain problems. We want you to modernize very, very fast from the old age of monolithic applications to cloud native, and then advance your AI journey as fast as possible. And it is, in some ways, it is very, very exciting times for all of us. But it's also humbling at the rate at which this innovation is going. And frankly, it is making me really scared. So this is a mix of emotions, being excited, humbled, and as well super scared with whatever things that are happening. And I'm really looking forward to partnering with all our partners and customers to make this really, really grand for our future. This is a great time for us, great time for technology, and thank you. Good.